Good evening, dear students. Welcome back to first PUC English class. So we were discussing Watchman of the Lake, scene 3. Before that, as usual, let me give you the meaning of the word that I gave you in the previous class. The word that I gave you in the previous class was trounce. Trounce, trounce. So what do you mean by trounce? Trounce is to defeat, to thrash, or to beat. For example, the mayor was trounced in the election, which means the mayor was defeated in the election. The play was trounced by reviewers. Australia trounced France by 60 points to 4. So this is how we use the word trounce in a sentence. Now getting back to scene 3, let's recall a few things that we discussed in the scene 3, which are important so that it will be easy for you to understand the points. So what happens in scene 3? Finally the lake was built and the king made Mara watchman of the lake, and we have seen how honest Mara is about his responsibilities, about his duty, and as I said, we have also seen how he handles and administers everything there related to the lake, and how he treats the fisherman and the visitor. Again, there is a difference. As I said, it can be asked for 4 marks. How did Mara treat the fisherman and the visitor in a different way or in a different manner? So we have seen that he treats the fisherman very badly since he was there to harm the creature. At the same time, he treats the visitor in a friendly way because he had come there to seek his help. This is how he treats the fisherman as well as the visitor. And we have also seen how he trains his son Ganga about the responsibilities of lake. So he is giving him training in his younger age itself so that he can understand the sacredness of that duty or responsibilities, because Mara believes that the work which was given to him by the goddess as well as the king, that was very sacred. This is the feeling that he had regarding the lake and his duty. That's why he takes care of everything there very carefully. In the same way, he trains his son how he needs to look after the lake in the future after the death of Mara. And then we have also seen his respect towards the goddess and the king. So what happens at the end of the scene? So we have seen that something was going to happen there which is very terrible. So we are going to see that, we are going to witness that in scene 4. So shall we begin then? Let's see what happens in scene 4. So here the scene takes place late at night. It is not a daytime, and we have seen it was almost evening. It was almost evening when Mara went inside his hut, and it was cloudy and there was a heavy rain, as Mara said in the previous scene. So it continues now. So in the same day, it is in the night. So torrential downpour and a shrieking storm. So it was raining so heavily. Downpour is heavy rain. So flood and violent flow. So in his village there was a violent rain, torrential rain and heavy rain and a shrieking storm. That means a wild storm. The storm was very wild, as if it is going to blow away even the entire village. So that was the condition of that village. I mean, there was a sudden change, terrible change in the nature. We can see that. As I said, here we are going to witness that nature is both the protector and destructor or destroyer. So we can see that in this scene. So here this scene that takes place in the king's palace. So the king's palace, the bell at the palace gate ringing incessantly. So somebody is there, someone has arrived in the palace and they are ringing the gate incessantly, which means continuously. Continuously somebody is ringing the gate of king's palace. So king was worried because it was late at night. So he asks, who is so urgently summoning me at this hour? So he was surprised. Who could it be at this hour? What has happened in this terrible night of storm? So he was worried a bit, something bad might have happened. This is how the king's thought goes on. So he asks, what has happened in this terrible night of storm? And he asks his servant to go down and see who it is. So he senses, the king senses a miss, which means a problem. He could make out that someone is in a trouble. So that's why he says, so it's better to check who that person is. And the bell ceases. Within the bracket, that is the instruction. The bell stops, which means the gate is open, and sound of footsteps. Somebody was coming. Asks him, who are you, man? What has happened that you should be calling us this hour? So the king asks him, who are you? And why have you come here at this late night? And what has happened to you that you should be calling at this hour? Why are you gasping so badly? He was, breathing swiftly. He was breathing heavily. So he was speaking, he was trying to speak in a breathless manner because he might be running. That's why. For that man says, I have been running. The man says, I have been running. Which means something bad had happened, and that's why he came running to inform that to the king. So that's why he was gasping so swiftly. So king asks, in this storm, so what brought you here? In this storm you came running, so what's the reason for that? Who are you? What has happened? So again he asks the same question, what has happened to you? What brought you here? What's the problem? The king couldn't recognize the man. Man, I am Mara. So the night, the king couldn't make out who that person is, and that's why he asks, who are you? For which Mara replies, he says, I am Mara, watchman of the lake. Most High, King, Amara, how differently you are now. So as I said, the king couldn't recognize Mara since he was battered by this rain. Battered is he is striked, because he is completely drenched in that rain, and his appearance that has completely changed here, because as I said, because of the rain, because he has been running by this rain with your hair plastered on your face, which his face is covered with the hair. As I said, he is completely drenched, and his hair that is plastered on his face, and all that water is dripping down. It was falling down from his body. And Mara, I beg your majesty's grace for bringing my presence here in state. Look at the way how he speaks to the king. He asks, or he apologizes the king for disturbing him at that late night, at that time. I have come running. He says again, I have been running, I have come running, battling, facing or fighting with this violent wind, roaring, because it's not that easy to even walk in that storm and rain. But here Mara, even risking his own life, he came there running in that heavy rain and in that violent wind, and through slush and raging torrents. Slush is mud. Okay, so the entire village was enveloped with water, because it was almost a kind of flood there in the village. So it was raining so heavily, and he came there through slush and facing violent flood. Raging torrents is violent flood. And again he apologizes the king, forgive me your majesty, I'm trembling with the message within me. So he says, Mara is very worried and he is scared. He says that I'm trembling, I'm shivering with the message within me. Which means he has something to convey which is very terrible news for the king. He has something very serious thing to convey. So he came there by risking his own life. He wanted to convey something to the king. May I utter it? Again he asks. And this one example is enough, this one incident is enough to say that Mara is a selfless person. If he was a selfish person, definitely he wouldn't have come out of his own hut. He could have resided inside in his own hut. He could have saved himself, but he doesn't do that. As I said, since he is a selfless, he came out and he came running to the palace and just to convey what was going to happen. And the king says, yes, proceed, you can say, Mara. My lord, it is about the lake. Mara is very scared now, so he wants to convey something about the lake to the king. It is about the lake. I feel faint to mention it. I can't even mention that, I can't even talk about that. It is unbearable and it is unbelievable. I can't even mention that. King, oh tell me, what has happened? The king is anxious now. He wants to know what's the matter. The king is anxious now. Oh tell me, what has happened? Mara, it is about to smash its bounds. So he says, this is all about the destruction of the boundary. So boundary of what? Boundary or the walls of the lake. He says, I want to say something, and the message is about the ruin, the destruction of its bounds. It says lake, lake's bounds or boundary or wall. It's about the destruction of the lake. The king was scared and he was startled by the words or the message of Mara. King asks, Mara, are you mad? Have you gone mad? Are you speaking the sense? This is what he asks. What are you saying? Because he couldn't believe that. Are you sure your mind is your own? Are you all right? Are you speaking the sense? This is what the king asks Mara. Mara, your majesty, now he says everything. Your majesty, till the evening there was no sign of a coming rain. Look at that, he says. They did not have any intuition or indication that there would be rain in the evening. But all of a sudden there was a change in the nature. So one thing we should learn here, nature is unpredictable. We cannot predict it, right? For example, take the current situation itself. So we are experiencing all the 3 seasons in a day. That itself is enough to show that how we are taking care of the nature. So as I said here, nature protects us only when we protect her. Otherwise, she won't show any mercy towards even to the mankind. And we are not above the nature. We have to understand that. And as I always say, once she goes out of control, then it becomes very difficult to get her under control. You cannot get her under your control. So she can destroy everything at once. So here he says, till the evening there was no sign of a coming rain. There was no intuition of coming rain. It was a beautiful bright day. It was a pleasant day. It was a beautiful day and unruffled, very calm. Nature was very calm and serene. The lake mirrored the blue sky on its bosom. The water was very pure and there was no mud. It was very clean. It was mirroring. It was even reflecting the blue sky on its bosom. That is on the center. But at dusk, but in the evening, dusk is evening, but at dusk, but in the evening, the sky darkened. There were clouds in the sky. The sky was enveloped by the dark clouds. I called my son in. He calls his son Ganga inside the hut and shut the door of my hut. As I said, we have seen that in the scene 3, right at the end. He calls his son and both of them go inside that hut. Raindrops battered my roof. Soon after that, what happened? It was raining. It started raining and it was raining heavily, and the raindrops, they began hitting the roof of Mara's hut. At midnight, when it was almost midnight, in the midnight, the wind rocked my hut. The wind was hitting his hut. It was blowing as if it is going to even throw away the hut of Mara. I got up and went out. Mara got scared. He couldn't sleep there properly, and that is why he goes out of his hut. I got up and went out. My heart was disturbed. Mara couldn't make out what was happening in the nature because it happened all of a sudden. He never thought that there would be heavy rain. It was a flood. He never thought that there would be a flood in the night. So he couldn't sleep inside his hut properly. He knew something bad would happen. His heart was, saying that to him, and that's why he came out. King, oh tell me, is the lake going to break? So the king is worried now, which Mara describes how Veda turned into destructive mode. Your Majesty will know it presently. I'm going to tell you everything. I rose from my bed and went out. He says, he got up from his bed and he went out. He says, I have never seen anything more terrible in my life, my Lord. So when he went outside, he witnessed something which was very terrible. It was very terrible and terrific. Nature showed its atrocity. He witnessed the atrocity of nature there. He says, he had never witnessed such a terrible thing before in his life. Veda was thundering down the mountain. Thundering, she was flowing violently as it was thundering. Okay, so Veda was flowing violently down the mountain. The wind shook the earth. The wind was so strong, so violent that it was even shaking the earth. So what did Mara do? Mara went to the edge of the water. He went to the bank of the water, lake. The waves. He witnessed that the waves rose to a man's height. The waves were reaching to a man's height, which isn't normal. Okay. So the waves rose to a man's height and hammered at the bank. It was hammering, it was hitting at the bank very violently, as if it is going to break the walls. The force of the water. He is describing the force of the water here. The water level was just a hair's breadth below the shore, which is no much capacity now. So hair's breadth below is short distance. Okay, now it is about to overflow. The water is about to overflow. So below the shore, at any moment, we cannot say that when it is going to be overflowed. So he says at any moment it might heave. Might heave is it at any moment it might rise up and flow over. It may overflow. In case the lake or in case the tank is broken, then definitely what happens? The water comes out and it may destroy everything, because the Veda is being very violent here. She has all the power. She is so strong that she can even break that entire lake. So that's what he is trying to say. King asks, Mara, was the lake? What is to happen to all of us? Now the king is very scared. He asks, what is going to happen to all of us? Are we going to die? He asks Mara. Now this is important for 4 marks. We have already seen the first appearance of the god in the second scene, but we are going to see the second appearance of the goddess in the 4th scene. This is very important. You have to compare. You may get question of comparing and contrasting the first and second appearance of the goddess. How did she look in the first appearance? She was very calm and she was giving advice and suggestion for their own good in the second scene, right? But now she has completely changed here. She is very furious. We are going to see a very furious goddess here. Is that she has all the right over her things and nature. So we do not have any rights to question. Now he describes the appearance of the god for the second time. First time, as I said, she was very amiable. She was friendly and calm. He says, I fell down and prayed. Mara began to pray. The goddess stood before me. The presented herself before Mara. Her tresses were wild. This time, remember, in the first time her tresses were flying in the wind, but this time her tresses were wild. Her hair was wild. Her eyes gleamed with a strange light. Her eyes shined with a strange light where there is no kindness at all. There was no kindness in her eyes this time. She carried a sword in her hand. Look at that. This time she had a sword, khadga, in her hand, which suggests that she was angry. There was only angry in her, eyes, in the eyes. And she had splashed her forehead with vermilion. Vermilion is kunkuma. She had marked her forehead or smeared her forehead with vermilion. Here you can picturize the goddess Kali, the exact description given here. So she is very angry here. Now don't write Kali in the examination, okay? So she is very angry, and I cowered at the sight of her. He crouched in fear. Mara crouched in fear, and he was terrified by the words of the goddess and by her appearance. Get up and hear me intently, she said. The goddess now, she doesn't have any patience. She commanded Mara to get up and to hear her intently, very carefully. She says, listen to me carefully. She said, I am the goddess of the lake, she says, and that shows her power. She is the final authority there. We don't know what made her angry. It is not mentioned here. There could be so many reasons for that. So I am the goddess of this lake, and that river, Veda, is my plaything. She says again, I have all the right on this plaything, which is my creation. So clear out of your hut at once. She orders him, she commands him, save yourself or vacate this place right now. Clear out of your hut. Just leave this place. Mother, he says, Mother, save me. What is going to happen? I asked. But here we should also understand one thing. He pleads in front of her. He fails to convince the goddess. But look at the way, even though she is angry, she is giving him opportunity and a chance to save himself. But he doesn't care for his life. He is still there. He could have vacated that place the moment she said, but he is not ready to vacate that place so easily. He wants to know what made her angry and why she was in a destructive mood. So that's why he says, so what is going to happen? She doesn't tell anyone. We should understand one thing. She doesn't tell anyone to save, but only to Mara. She appeared and she tells him. Because Mara, she too knows that Mara is an honest person and he's doing his work very promptly. Because she is in a destructive mode and she's going to destroy everything and none can stop her. Before that, she wants Mara to save himself. So she commands him, clear out of your hut at once. Just vacate this place at once. And she says, I'm going to kick away the miserable stones you have piled up to imprison the waters of my Veda. Look at that. Who told Mara to build the lake? The goddess herself. But now the same goddess is ordering him to vacate that place, and she's saying that she's going to kick away, she's going to break the miserable stones. She says, you have piled up, you have heaped up, okay, you have used these stones to imprison the water of my Veda. She is the one who told him to give Veda shelter or home, but now she says that you have imprisoned the waters of my Veda with those stones. So I am going to destroy your tank. This is what she says. This is her mood. This is why I said we are nobody to question the command of the God. So she asks, in a sense, who are you to imprison Veda? What right do you have to imprison Veda? For which Mara says, Mother, we put it up at your command. He says, we built the tank as per your command. You are the one who commanded us to build this tank. And for which she says, look at her reply there, yes, and now I want to destroy it. Of course, I said that in the past, and now I want to destroy this lake. It is my mood now. Do you understand? Everything is depending on the mood of the goddess. She has all the authority there. She is the final authority. She can change anything the way she wants. And further she says, Veda is my plaything. So somewhere what could have happened? The goddess might have thought that people have forgotten her. Maybe is this a way she is trying to give them a warning? We do not know that. She says, Veda is my plaything. It's my creation. I created it when I wanted it. Look at the way she says. Of course I told you to build, or of course I created it when I wanted it. Now I will splash away its water when I like. Now I will splash away. I'll destroy everything. I'll create the flood by splashing away its water whenever I like. It is my wish. Who are you to stop me? She replied, who are you to stop me? Who are you to prevent me from destroying this lake? It is my mood now. It is my wish. Mara. King asks, Mara, are you speaking the truth? The king is not in a state of believing the words of Mara. He is completely shocked now. He is not able to understand what was happening there at that moment. Mara says, Your Majesty, may my son and wife perish if there is a word of untruth in what I am saying. So he swears on his wife and son. So let them perish, let them die, let them destroy if there is a word of untruth in what I am saying. He says that. And king, go on with your story. Mara says, he continues his story. Mara was still there, as I said. Look at that integrity or commitment of Mara. Dedication of Mara towards his duty. As I said, he could have vacated that place. He could have saved his life, but he doesn't do that. He was still there. He was pleading with the goddess because he wanted to save his lake. He wanted to save the village. He wanted to save his people. That's why he was there, and he pleads with her. I pointed out her the vastness of the lake. He tries to convince the goddess by describing the level of the water there, the vastness, the immensity of water or the lake, how huge it is, how huge the lake is. He describes that, the water stretching the length of the hill and going in a bend out of sight. Look at that, almost it was overflowing and can't see the other side of the bank. So length of the hill and going in a bend out of sight, the whole of it kept back by a bank. Boundary of that lake has not yet broken. That is why the village is still there. All of it kept back by a bank which would take a quarter of a day to cross. Look at that, he says, to go from one side to another side, it takes a quarter of a day to cross. So that is the level of the water and also the length of the lake. So it is too huge. But all that she would say to it was, why do you make much of it? When he described all these things, and he also described the length of the lake, and he also described the level of the water there, even though he explained everything what she said, why are you why do you worry much about that? This is what she says. I told her that all that water waited like a crouching tiger. He says the water is about to overflow and it is waiting like a crouching tiger, which means a tiger which is about to hunt. So in the same way it is waiting. The water is waiting to swallow or consume the entire village. But if it is still there, that is because of the tank. If the bank or the tank broken, definitely the entire village will be flooded. This is how he tries to convince her. And would spring upon the 100 villages and towns and the king's capital beyond if the bank was removed. So everything would be flooded, everything would be swallowed if the tank or if the bank was removed. She laughed at it and flourished her sword. When Mara said all these things, she was completely indifferent and she was not at all worried about what Mara was going through. So laughed at it. When he said all these things, she just laughed at it and flourished her sword. I pleaded with her for hours. He was still there. He had been pleading the goddess to save them, to spare them and have pity on us poor mortals. He requested the goddess to save them, to save those poor mortals. Mortals, human beings. Human beings, but she was not to be moved, but she was not ready to be convinced. No words of Mara could convince the goddess. She wants to free the river Veda from the stones. That's it. That was her intention. At that moment, that was the mood, to free the river Veda from those bank or tank. So the most terrible and reckless mood of destruction seemed to have come upon the goddess. She was in a reckless mood. She was in a destructive mood. So she was not ready to be convinced by anyone. So finally what he did, I fell on the wet ground. He prostrated before her, Sashtanga Namaskara, prostrated. He fell to her feet, he started begging her. So what did he say? What did he pray? A mortal like me cannot stop you, O Divine Mother. I am a poor mortal, how can I stop you? The Divine Mother. Nobody can stop you from anything. I am a poor mortal, but grant me this. He asks one boon from the goddess. Fine, you are not ready to be convinced, but at least grant me this. I have one wish. So now Mara is going to trick the goddess. He is not going to cheat on the goddess. As I said, he is not selfish. Whatever he is doing for the welfare of his village as well as the people. That's why he asks this. He says, I will run to the capital and inform the king. He requests the goddess to give him one opportunity to run to the capital and inform the king about the destruction of the lake and return. This is what he requests the goddess to allow him. Till then stay your hand. And he requests her, till I return, till I come back from the king, you should not destroy anything. You should be calm. You should not destruct anything. So what it means? Until he reaches back, she should not destroy the lake. This is what he requests with the goddess. When you see me here again, you may continue the devastation. So you can continue the destruction, you can do whatever you want to do, only when you see me here in the same place again. Till then, you should not destroy anything. This is what he asks with the goddess to grant. And yes, I grant this. Even the goddess agreed. The goddess in a destructive mood. So she agreed for whatever Mara asked. I will wait until you have told the king and written, she said. Finally, she gave a promise that I won't destroy anything until you come back. I will wait here until you have told the king, until you go there and convey the message to the king and written. And here I am, your majesty. And that's why Mara says to the king that this is how I came here. King, Mara, are you sure you saw and heard all this? Still he has a doubt. He is not able to believe this at all. And he asks Mara, are you sure you saw and heard all this? Mara, how can I prove it, my lord? Here you see the mud on my clothes. So he points at all the mud that had stuck on his cloth while he was prostrating before the goddess. When I fell prostrate before the goddess, all this mud stuck to me. So believe me, he points at he shows all that mud which were there on his clothes to the king. King, I dare not think. I can't even imagine that. So he's scared. I do not know what to do. So here the king feels helpless. He doesn't know how to save his village. He doesn't know how to save the lake from being destroyed. He doesn't know how to save his entire village and people. So in a moment or less than I and this palace and my subjects, all right. So he thinks that in a moment, in a very less time, everything is going to be ended. There's no way out. So he says, nothing so good as preparing for an end. He decided that they are all going to see their end. Hey, call someone. So he orders his servant and he says, let an announcer go round with a beat of drums. In Kannada we say, Dangura Sarodu. So he wants his servant to announce to the entire village that the destruction is upon them. Inform everyone that we are going to die. So beat of drums and announce to the people and everyone in my kingdom that it is the last day of the world. So he wants his servant to inform entire village that they're going to die. The deluge is upon us. Deluge, the destruction is upon us. Tell everybody that the destruction is upon us. Tomorrow the sun will rise upon a lifeless land. Everyone will be dead by tomorrow. So this is what he says. Mara. Now Mara asks, Your Majesty, permit me to. So he wants to say something to the king, and that's why he asks his permission. Tell me what you have to say. Mara, I have a suggestion. He tells the king that he has a suggestion. They can save their life. King permits him. Go on. Mara, the goddess will keep her word. He knows that the goddess will never break her promise. So he says, the goddess will keep her word. She has promised to wait till she sees me back there. And he says to the king that the goddess has promised me that she would not destroy anything. She would wait for me till she sees me there. Make it impossible for me to return there, Your Majesty. Look at the way. How Mara is ready to sacrifice his own life. How can someone be so selfless like him? This is why I said Mara is an extraordinary personality. This is the reason why he was equivalent, why he was treated equivalent to the God. Because he was even ready to sacrifice his own life. So he says, she will destroy everything only when she sees me there. So make it impossible for me to return there. So don't let me go there. Do something so that I won't return, Your Majesty. Which means here Mara is ready to sacrifice himself to save the lake and village. So that's why he requests the king. So in page number 76 you can see that. So this is here a very small lake, but as I said, you have to imagine it as it is very huge. Okay. So look at the goddess there. She is very angry this time. So she is in a mood of destruction. Right. So king asks. So when Mara said this, he got confused and he asks, how? Mara, if Your Majesty's sword is there. So he requests the king to cut off his head, to execute him. The king, no, what a horrible suggestion. The king couldn't even think about that. How can he kill Mara? It's not at all possible. Mara, or send for the executioner, my lord. If you cannot, at least send for the executioner. And he says, my son is still sleeping in the hut. Ganga is still there. He doesn't know anything about this and what is happening outside the hut. He's still sleeping in the hut. My last request is this. He asks, he has a last wish and he requests the king to fulfill it. He says, when I'm gone, make him the watchman of the lake. That was the only wish that Mara had before his death. He asks the king that my last request is, after my death, give the responsibility of the lake to my son Ganga. And not only that, it doesn't stop there itself. And after him, his son, he says. So after the death of Mara, the responsibility of the lake, that has to go to Ganga. And after the death of Ganga, it has to be shouldered by his son. And then his son to the last generation of our family. So here Mara wants his generation to take the responsibility of the lake. This is the request of Mara with the king. So now, why does he request the king that the responsibility should be taken by his family members? What could be the reason? The reason is Mara thinks that this is a noble job. And he took care of each and every stone of the lake and how it was built, Mara. He doesn't want others to be watchmen of the lake because they may not understand the holiness or sacredness of this lake as well as the duty. They may take it for granted, right? Because we have also seen that Mara has trained his son about that, and definitely he'll also train his son regarding this. And that's why here Mara is not being selfish again. He doesn't have any greediness that his own family members should look after the lake, but his intention is that has to be taken care of. That has to be taken care of in a good manner, in a good way. It has to be protected. That's the only intention Mara had, and that's why now he is ready to sacrifice his own life. So he says, his own family members and to the last generation of his family has to take care of or has to be the watchman of the lake, so that they learn everything from their fathers and forefathers, so that they can save the lake from everyone. So this is the last request of Mara. So here the story of Mara ends. Of course there is one more scene, but there we are going to discuss something else. But the story of Mara, that ends for fourth scene. So we have seen the different characters of Mara, right? How humorously he was presented, and how responsible he was in the second scene, and how he handled everything. And look at the fourth scene. He tricked the goddess just to save the entire lake and his people, and he sacrificed his own life. So somewhere it also gives message that we cannot lead our life being completely selfish. Sometimes we have to be selfless, at least for the sake of others. Here he was doing that for welfare of the others. He did not even care for his own life. So that is the commitment he had in his life about his duty and guarding the lake. He always considered it as a sacred duty. So finally he sacrificed life, and he did not return, and the goddess did not destruct the lake or the tank. This is all about Mara. So we'll discuss the last scene in the next class. And please do think about Mara and let me know your opinion about that. Thank you.